So welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success story series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders, their backgrounds, their successes and challenges, and what really drives them forward. And today it's a delight to have with us Andy Murphy, Managing Director of Melrose Interiors. And firstly, Andy, thank you so much for coming on board with these interviews. And if you'd be kind enough to introduce yourself, your business, and what do you do to help your clients?
Well, that's great. Thanks very much for having me. Melrose Interiors is based in Bradford. We've sort of three divisions within our business. So we've been trading for over 50 years, specialising in the rugs and flooring industry. And we supply a lot of retailers and online digital retailers with bespoke ranges. And that ranges from rugs, runners and mats, to broadloom carpet, to laminate, to vinyl and underlay. Our other two divisions, which are growing, which we've only sort of built over the last couple of years. One is our Relay, which is a sustainable brand of rugs, and that's growing very, very fast. Mm-hmm. And the last is Ping Logistics, which is our fulfilment service. So we deal with some really big, important key retailers, and we can offer additional logistics services because of the infrastructure that we built here in Bradford.
So a lot about diversity at the moment, which is great. And as you say, sustainability, which is really, really important nowadays.
Yeah, sometimes having three plates spinning might not necessarily complement the business, but certainly over the last 2 years, in terms of the challenges that we've all faced with COVID, with lockdown, with that transition from the high street to online, they've all complemented each other. And what we've seen, quite surprisingly, is all three actually grow. And certainly from the supply chain issues, which we're all experiencing, having a UK manufacturing arm, having that ability to respond to demand in 2 to 3 weeks, rather than 3 to 4 months if we were importing from India or China, has been a massive benefit. And certainly hot on the agenda is the sustainability, all about, our use of plastics, our transit packaging, our recycling ability. And rather than just sort of doing, a couple of bits here and there, to actually make it meaningful. And really is now nearly 10 and will be 20% of our business turnover going into 2022. So we're seeing sizable growth and it's becoming a standalone business.
Wonderful. It's it's just great to hear local Yorkshire success stories. It's I'm really blessed, I feel, is that we tend to attract people with successful businesses, and we don't. I know there's lots of people challenged out there, and I know one or two people personally that are challenged because of the sectors they're in, but it's just great to hear so many success stories going on right on the doorstep. So before we get into sort of some of the more detailed stuff of the business, it'd be great to learn a little bit more about your background, how you got into business and why this particular business.
Well, I'm certainly not an academic. So I was dyslexic at school. So education, while I enjoyed my schooling, I wasn't an academic. And so I left school at 16 with no qualifications. Didn't realise what I was going to do. Bit of a culture shock, really. And then sort of reflected, I was going to join the army, decided to go back to college, and then slowly got a more confidence and probably got the ability to manage my dyslexia in a structured way, created tools to overcome some of the challenges I had, and then started in the workplace. So started right on the factory floor, doing all the basics, sweeping the floors, cutting carpet, warehousing work. Went to college for 6 years and slowly but surely built up A, my confidence, and B, my experience and qualifications. From there, I then went into production, sales. Then I had a year, 18 months out to go play semi-professional rugby down in New Zealand. Learned an awful lot there. That was fantastic. Yeah. And I think that's where I really came of age. Yeah. Going back to the UK and then started to work in retail and started to work on sourcing, predominantly from India. Right. Which we grew a business over 15 years quite successfully. And then from there, got approached to come and work for Melrose. And over the last 10 or 12 years, we've been transforming Melrose now into the business it is, really. So, yeah, not probably the most conventional way, but hands-on, probably a good work ethic.
Yes.
And always learning, and having the ability to travel the world and see factories and take all the good things that you observe in a factory and bring those back into our site here in Bradford has been incredibly valuable.
Wowzers. What a, as you say, a diverse career, and operating in all the different sectors of a business as well as different sectors of industry too. And then some professional sport thrown in as well. So that's...
Well, I think that certainly helps. It certainly helps with your development, that teamwork, that changing room environment, and how you can build teams within your business. So I find that incredibly rewarding and a really, really steep learning curve, actually, particularly when you're playing at a good level. It's all about preparation and it's setting the scene. So that was fantastic for me. I love that environment.
Yeah, I can absolutely imagine it must be wonderful. So think about yourself, obviously talking about your own challenges, but as a business, but also as a business person, what sort of would you say some of the biggest challenges and issues you've had to overcome over your career?
Well, I bought the business in 2016. We were negotiating just as Brexit was announced. So timing could have been better, particularly with the onslaught of currency devaluation and, all the challenges around that. There's a couple of really key things that we focus on as our business, and that's the customer journey. So our mission statement is all around delighting the customer, because if we lock in and we can add value to our customers, that loyalty is then repaid, and that's how we can build. Being a good listener and understanding where the opportunities are, because we're a relatively small SME, so we have to be that added value. So we have to go and really hunt out where the opportunity is. Yeah. So some of the work that we're doing around logistics for the retailers, we'll pull their data at 6 a.m. in the morning. Those goods are on a truck, personalised, pick, pack and dispatch by 12 noon. So our service proposition is all around our ability to process an order within a very fast lead time. Second one would be around exclusive product on design, colour, on a certain retail. Again, could we facilitate that so we can generate good sales? The sustainability offer, some of our customers have got problems with waste product. How can we facilitate that? How can we then turn that round? So that's generally, our formula, and in terms of how we can then build through excelling at some of the service that we did on our flooring. Quite a few of our key customers have said, well, you're so good at the fulfilment side. Can you help us out on this pet range? Can you help us out on this curtain range? Can you help us out on this decorating range? So what's naturally evolved is us actually doing a lot of fulfilment for some of the key big retailers. We've no expertise in any of those product categories, but we can pick, pack and dispatch to the required standard to enhance the customer journey. So I think those are some of the key learnings really about being a really good listener and really understanding what your customer or your target audience wants and making sure we can deliver.
Great learnings. I think you mentioned before we started that one of the people I interviewed recently was talking about the customer, the customer has worked hard to make their money, whether that's personal money or business money, and it's our duty to give them the best response. The other thing that came to mind actually is I was lucky enough to listen to Sir Terry Matthews, who is he's known to be the first Welsh billionaire, and the guy who owns Celtic Manor that you may be familiar with. And he presented, and someone asked him, and said, it was a really simple question. They said, "What's your secret to business?" Which sounds like, and he said, "Look, I know this is a really simple answer, but he said I asked my customers what they wanted, and I got it for them." Yeah. And for me, it was a blinding flash of the obvious. It was, it's like, let's listen to what our customers want, and it may not be something that we specifically have an expertise in, exactly as you've said. But if we can help them by sourcing it or providing some service that supports it, then we're helping them, which creates long-term relationships and therefore long-term growth. And that's
couldn't agree more. And I think you need to continually ask the questions, because strategy and how the consumer shops, spends, loyalty, it's so fast moving, it's changing all the time, or it's enhancing and developing. So for us, it's really important to keep checking in that we are delivering the service that our customers want, that their consumers want as well. And if it isn't, then we have to be agile enough to change and embrace change. IT's played a very big part of our business, even though we're a very tactile, product-based focused business. IT fundamentally has changed how we operate. So our biggest investment is not actually machinery, it's IT platforms. Wow. So we can deliver through compliance all the relevant services and data that's needed to offer this service to key retailers.
Brilliant. So what else have you learned through your journey in business and in life? What are some of the things that have really stuck out for you as things that you've learned? We often call them blindly fast to the obvious in Actually Coach. It's sort of they're typically standard truths, but it takes a while to learn to actually get the learning.
Yeah, I think when you commit to buying a business, the steep learning curve is from the financial perspective. You know, it's not just from the product. I'm very product and very customer focused. You know, since buying the business, I've really had to work hard on the financial elements and making sure that we've got all that fiscal disciplines in place to ensure, particularly with some of the volatility we've seen over the last, well, even since, 2008, since the financial crash, making sure we don't overtrade, cash is king, making sure we're not busy fools, so we've got a margin. It has been challenging with currency, so hedging. We're in a slightly challenging area where we have to give long-term fixed pricing to a lot of our customers because of the ranging. And yet within that 8-10 month period, a lot of factors outside our control can influence the market. You know, huge challenges around supply chain, around distribution, importing, raw material price increases. So it's making sure we manage that. And possibly having the discipline in the younger days I wouldn't have done, but to walk away from non-profitable business. But there's things that we've all made mistakes, but taking the learnings from really. So certainly the financial element has been a big and embracing change. I think as a business we like change. I think we get a kick out of it because when we see that change implemented and the benefit it's given to our colleagues or to our processes or to our suppliers or customers is really rewarding. Yeah,
brilliant. I know somebody, I think it was Michael Gerber, described a business is like a tree. It's either growing or dying. It can't just stay the same because the environment around it is changing too. And as you say, being ready and open for change that's bound to happen. And as you rightly said, you three massive things that have changed that we've had in the last 14 years: the recession, Brexit, and COVID is a massive thing. I'm interested now. Actually, right now, I'm speaking to a lot of businesses where supply costs and raw material costs are going up quite significantly. Have you been challenged by that yourself, or you?
Yeah, hugely. Yeah, it's been a real impact, and we don't see a lot of light at the end of the tunnel at the moment. It's continuing, and last year we said it probably end in the last quarter, or certainly the first quarter of 22. We can't see it really improving until the latter part of this year, with Chinese New Year looming, we're actually seeing a deterioration. So inbound containers from Europe or from the Far East, Turkey, India, it's a bit of a lottery when they'll clear, when they'll land. So many factors outside your control. Therefore, stock availability is limited. So we've got less stock, and therefore it's impacting in terms of gross sales and margin. I also think it puts a lot of pressure on our colleagues because there's a lot of firefighting, stop-start. So our efficiencies internally have been impacted. And again, our team's done a fantastic job in terms of just embracing it, really. I think we've probably a little bit more composure now. It's almost the norm rather than the exception. Raw material is another big concern. We buy a lot of polyprop, which is a byproduct of crude oil, and that's seen huge swings in pricing. And that's one of our key drivers to focus on recyclability, really, because if we can actually make a meaningful flow in terms of a circular economy of our relay product, where we sell it to the consumer. Within 2 or 3 years, they can return that back to us. We can then recycle that again. And that's something that's really growing, and we're getting great buy-in from consumers. But it's tough. It is tough. And I think it will continue for the next 6 months to be very challenging.
Yes, I can see that, and hopefully we'll see some, as you say, some light at some point. But I'm seeing, speaking to people, it's that volatility, isn't it? It's not knowing. It's not I guess it's a fairly new, different situation, perhaps is the right word to say, and therefore there aren't that many standards we can fall back on and look back and say, well, it went like this before, maybe it'll go like this again. So I guess it's anybody's guess. So obviously you've had quite a varied career and different experiences. Who or what would you say have had the biggest influence on you and your career?
Wow. Certainly our ex-chairman Bill Edgley, who gave me the opportunity as a 16-year-old with no real direction. He was fantastic in terms of giving me a chance, actually installing some confidence and self-belief. Hard taskmaster, but he was fantastic in sort of laying down the foundations for me to then start my journey in terms of developing within the business, really. Family have been incredibly important and supportive. And then probably, sporting icons. I love my rugby, love all sport, and some of the characters, some of the inspirational captains that you see in terms of Martin Johnson and what you've seen around Paul McConnell of Ireland, Alan Wynne-Jones, those guys, their complete dedication and their stubbornness to never give in through injury or whatever. So I take a lot of inspiration from that, even though it's not probably related to the business, what they've built, their performance, how they've maintained incredibly high standards for 10, 12 years is phenomenal. So I'm building a team, building an environment where you're all aligned. So I think sport's been incredibly important in terms of my development and how possibly I manage some of our team. Brilliant.
We can certainly learn so much. I think I mentioned before we started the interview, we take a lot from our business, the coaching part of our business coaching profession, from the sporting world, because obviously coaching techniques have been around for many tens, if not almost hundreds of years now, and we learn so much from amazing people, because if you can, just by helping an individual increase their personal performance level, or a team, then everyone's gonna do more, make more, be more successful, and ultimately, hopefully, more happy. So we can learn so much from sport, without a doubt.
Yeah.
So on that journey, then, have you picked up? I always like to pick up any favorite quotes or sayings that people have picked up over time.
Well, Nelson Mandela said he never lost, he always learned, and that for me is probably the single biggest take home that I have. You make mistakes, learn from them, and then when that situation or scenario happens again, you've just got a little bit there to fall back on to probably make the right call and the right decision. So just keeping it really simple. We talk about world-class basics, just do the basics right, and we try and keep things simple. Logistics, if you complicate it, can be a nightmare, so we try and just departmental it into really, really simple functions, and that seems to work for us as a business. Given that we're supplying 30 different retailers, all different processes, we have some form of standardization. So those would probably be the key things that we try and work on as a business, without being too flash. Bit of Yorkshire mentality, just keeping it simple.
Absolutely, keep it simple. I love the Mandela quote. Fully enough, our founder, Brad Chiggers, is a very, very successful man. He told me quite some time ago, he says, Chris, I'm as successful as I am because I've made more mistakes than anybody else I know. Not despite it. And it was the mindset to be acceptance of the mistakes, providing we learn, that I think has driven him forward. And we see that in many successful people. It's let's give it a go. Let's give it a go and see what happens.
There's an element of fear of failure as well.
Yes.
If it's right, and you don't want to be too paranoid about that, because that is part of that learning curve. But trying to be the best that you can. Sometimes you can't measure that, but that's really important to pitch our standards as high as we can, and making sure they're achievable without being too sort of pie in the sky.
Absolutely, yeah, and I completely agree. I think it's the willingness to accept that and accept the failure, or the fear of failure, because you say there isn't. If you accept that we learn from them, they aren't really failures. They're just different ways of doing it. I think it was it Edison they said he took 1,008 different prototypes before he got the light bulb, but he said no, they were just ways that it didn't work, not ways that it did work, and that's okay.
And I think the same. I think he's on record saying that the product development failures were massive until he got it right, but boy, when he did get it right, what a product it was. So there's lots of learnings and some great examples out there that you think these guys are hugely successful first time round. But when you dig deeper and read in terms of early stages, it was no different from us trying to set up a business or a production process or trying to recycle a product into a consumable product. What were the challenges? And, you get a lot of knockbacks, but you've got to just remain positive and drive through that. And that's where that drive, the fear of failure, there must be a solution to it. If we can have mindset, then, we're going to be successful.
Yeah, funnily enough, I quite often, when I work with business owners often, and things don't look great, and it's like, well, things are, and I often say businesses are often like the old Rubik's Cube. You look at one and it's everything's messed up, all the colours are messed up, and then somebody that knows what they're doing. I've never managed to do it myself, so it wouldn't be me, but someone that could do three moves and it's done. And often we're only 3 moves away from the success that we've been striving for, and keeping the faith with that is what while monitoring every place can be really important.
I think just another point on that is, asking for help, clarification, bringing people in, expertise externally that are transferable. It's not all about trying to keep it in-house and being precious about it. So those are probably the learnings that, we're going to do it ourselves. We're going to keep it really, really tight and insular. Far from it, we should open up, because there's such a plethora of expertise, even locally. We engage now with schools, we engage with universities, apprentice pathways. I learned so much through being in those meetings, because we're understanding what potential employees want from us as a business, or if it's from a technical or a product or an engineering side. What's the latest technique that they've just learned? I'm thinking, actually, extruding, we need some of that expertise. Come and have a chat, come and have a cup of coffee. So it is also opening up to external expertise as well. Brilliant.
I think it's absolutely bang on. One of the phrases I picked up a long time ago, which I love, which is the mind is like a parachute. It works best when it's open. So I think it's just being open to, and there's so much to learn, isn't it? It's just that desire to learn new things and just try stuff. It's wonderful. So in terms of learning, what would you say you've learned about yourself during your journey, Andy, so far?
Certainly to become more patient. I still am very impatient. I think you mellow a little bit, and I certainly enjoy the detail of the business more now, rather than just certain elements. And so, sales and product development were always my passion in terms of that now. But as you're a business owner, you're sitting and you're leading on that, you've got to look at every aspect. So I think I've got a much more broader vision of the business. And I think that's helped in terms of giving the business better structure, better foundation. No good excelling on one side of the business if you're creaking on the other. So that's been a steep learning curve. Certainly being more patient, and then probably setting a little bit more achievable goals rather than just too sort of high, and then being disappointed when you don't. So a little bit more realism around, objectives, goals, KPIs, etc. particularly for the team, because when they hit that and that acknowledgement and reward or that feeling, it lifts them so much. So yes, some probably refinement in terms of your management style and your outlook, while still being ambitious, just putting it a little bit more in perspective.
Yeah, great. It's there is a gap. I mean, big goals are great, and big goals, but as soon as it becomes a gap on a believability, so they should be, in my opinion, to get the highest level of performances, they should be achievable at a big stretch. But as long as the stretch is too far, that becomes a dream, and it becomes ethereal and not real.
And you get a disconnect then. You get a disconnect because, halfway through that period, you realise it's not going to be achieved, and therefore you start to dip. So, that's certainly been a learning curve and things that we've worked hard on to make it more achievable, and then realign and reset. Yeah. So, our business is going through some good growth, but actually that causes its challenges as well, because we're stretching. When we stretch, you've got to onboard new people, new processes, investment. You kick on, you hit it, but then when we realign to the next target, we've got to make sure we don't dip. And that's hard when we're trying to grow and build volumes and build capacity.
Yeah, growth comes with its own challenges. It's that they're often, well, I was going to say they're often nicer challenges. They're often not as sort of potentially fatal as the challenges of not growing, but they come around. I mean, personally, I my first business, I ended up doing 100-hour weeks, which is one of the reasons for, I was doing that for about 3 years, which is one of the reasons, having sold that business, I do this now, is because I think, I meet so many successful people who are successful financially, but from a work-life balance in terms of, the number of hours they do, it's not what they wanted to do. That wasn't the plan, if that makes sense.
No, and I fall a little bit into that category. You now need to really try and get that work-life balance. And it isn't all about growth or the financial return, or it is about just having a balance. And I think it has been an exceptional 2 years. And for business leaders, I'm part of the Vistage group, which has sort of business leaders, CEOs, MDs, and there's a common theme that comes out through there, and that's been, again, hugely supportive over the last few years about us meeting monthly and sharing the common challenges. Yep. And even though the businesses are very diverse, there is a common theme around the stress, the anxiety of managing, of maintaining safe working environments, the commercial element, and it does drain you and does strain, some of those leaders, particularly if you're a sole shareholder on your own, and some of the SMEs are like that. So it can be tough. So that's even more important to try and get that work-life balance.
It is, and have that support around you, because it is tough, because when we've got challenges, we don't want to take them home. We don't want, and we can't really share them with our team, especially if they're related to challenges in the business. So it is important we get that sort of support. So that's great. No, it's good. That's great to hear. So as I said, I picked up a great quote this morning that I love, which I was going to use today, which was never look backwards, because that's not the direction you're heading. So looking forward, which I think never heard that one before, but it's
I have,
I'm having it because I just think it's perfect. So looking forwards, a bit you mentioned, you touched on a little bit. Looking forward, what does the future look like for you guys, and what challenges might you face?
We're optimistic but realistic about the challenges ahead. I think where we're really excited is around the journey on recycling and sustainability, and how we can build houseware ranges which become mainstream, that are very genuine. We have rug ranges that are made out of recycled fashion garments, flooring that's made out of water bottles. We divert 5,000 tons of industrial carpet waste, and we convert that back into rugs, runners and mats. That's becoming a structured, meaningful business now that's really starting to grow and add some commercial value to our customers and to us. I think the logistics, the consumer now is very impatient, and therefore, even if it's just a simple houseware product, they want it next day. They want it in the right packaging, they want it on time in full. So our infrastructure around delivering that service to our customers is going to be absolutely key. So technology, better colleague training. So we've got to go on a bit of a journey now in terms of how we develop our people, because it's changed so much over the last 2 or 3 years. So no, I'm really excited. UK production is key. We're reducing our reliance on importing. And then the last thing is to try and get carbon neutral as a business within the next 5 years. So we've just bought our own woodland, actually, 6.5 acres of woodland, which we're going to put another mile of hedgerows and plant another 2,000 trees. But we're going to open that up as a community project to local school colleges. And we're just going to simply look at the sustainable energy sources around hydro, around wind and solar. So while we'll try and get a little bit of carbon return in terms of that, we just want to open that up as a woodland educational centre for schools and colleges and the community in Bradford. Brilliant.
That's wonderful to hear. I happen to know, if it's use in the future, just for a guy that does woodland talks about foraging and various things, who's local to here. So if that's any use, a bit of a Ray Mears type guy.
Oh,
but, you know, when you've got it up and running, just taking people around and showing what's there. I mean, I used to do a little bit of foraging when I was younger, and you know, there's so many things that you can know about the forest that are fascinating.
Yeah, and it'll just be completely natural. It'll just have those 3 elements around sustainable energy resources and also around hedgerow sort of development and woodland. So that's just a little bit in terms of putting our a little bit back into the environment, but we're still very, very focused on building the sustainable and recycle ranges. That's a key.
Brilliant. That's all. I mean, it's great to hear. What a bright future. So thank you so much for your time. I think a couple of sort of closing questions, which are really interesting to the answer from, which are more general. First one would be, what would you say to anyone that was thinking of going into business right now?
Stay true to your beliefs, okay? Because no idea is a bad idea. And boy, we've heard some. So I would stick to it. I think be prepared for hard work. You know, work ethic is an important element.
Yes,
and got that right work ethic, I think you will succeed. And I think I touched on it earlier. You know, we like to do quite a lot of listening. We need to understand where the opportunities are rather than trying to dictate. We're only a small, we can't influence a lot. What we can do is be good listeners and understand where there's an opportunity or a problem that we can resolve. So that's probably the advice. You know, be a great observer, and opportunities will be there to be had.
Brilliant, great advice. And finally, on the last piece of advice, what would be the best advice you could give to an 18-year-old Andy?
Oh, that's a tough question. I'm not quite sure, actually. I think probably without repeating myself, is I didn't go with my career. I wanted to be a farmer. I wanted to be in agriculture. And unfortunately, I probably didn't dig deep enough to go back into education to go for my first love, which was farming. So if you do get a knockback, reevaluate, don't change tack, but just probably approach it in a slightly different way to be successful. So I'm in the flooring and logistics industry now. My passion still is to go back into farming and agriculture. So if you get a few knockbacks, don't change tack, keep going to that original belief. Brilliant.
What great advice for anybody. So on that note, I'd just like to thank you so much for your time today, and it's been an absolute pleasure and delight and really inspiring. And I'd love to come back maybe in a year, 12 months or so, and just see the further development, especially with the sustainability business that you're looking to, because that is without doubt the future in many industries and sectors. And so, you know, being at the forefront of that is must be very exciting.
No, you've been more than welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.